For 87 years, a sealed file lay forgotten in the vaults of the Edgar Cayce Foundation in Virginia Beach. Marked with a red seal and the inscription, "Confidential, not to be opened until 2024, the envelope contained a wax cylinder recording that would forever change our understanding of the nature of the soul and the mysteries of reincarnation. What you are about to discover should never have come to light, at least not while those who witnessed these events were still alive. But now, decades after the death of the last individuals involved, the truth can finally be revealed. The recording dated back to December 15, 1937, just 8 years before Edgar Cayce's death, when the famed psychic was already showing signs of physical exhaustion from decades of psychic readings. On that cold winter afternoon, he had been sought out by a desperate family from Richmond, Virginia, whose 4-year-old son was disturbing the entire household with detailed accounts of a life he had never lived. The boy, named Timmy, would wake up every night screaming in French, a language he had never learned, and describe with frightening accuracy the trenches of World War I, including the names of battle companions and specific geographical locations that only a veteran soldier would know. Cayce, already weakened by the intensity of his visions, initially hesitated to take the case. There was something about this request that deeply disturbed him, a feeling that he was about to touch upon truths that humanity was not yet ready to understand. But the parent's sincerity and the child's obvious suffering touched his compassionate heart. What he discovered during that extraordinary session was so disturbing that he himself ordered the recording to be sealed for almost a century. When Cayce entered his characteristic trance state that afternoon, his voice took on a different tone, more solemn and laden with a gravity that his assistants had never witnessed. He began describing not just one past life, but multiple existences of the soul inhabiting Timmy's body. According to his revelations, the child carried the memories of at least 7 previous lives, the most recent being that of a French soldier named Henri Dubois, killed in the trenches of Verdun in 1916. Particularly touching was Cayce's description of the process by which Timmy would gradually release himself from the traumatic memories of Henry. He explained that as the child grew and developed his own personality, the past life memories would naturally fade into the subconscious, remaining as intuitive wisdom rather than conscious memories. The purpose of these memories wasn't to torment the child, but to allow him to integrate the lessons learned in previous existences. The revelations about Timmy were only the beginning. Cayce then went on to discuss other similar cases he had encountered but had never publicly documented. He spoke of a 6-year-old girl in Tennessee who spoke fluent ancient Aramaic and described religious rituals from 2,000 years ago. He mentioned a 5-year-old boy in California who drew accurate maps of medieval European cities he had never seen and recalled intimate details of life as a Benedictine monk in the 12th century. What most impressed Cayce was the emotional consistency of these memories. The children not only remembered events, but carried the feelings and emotional patterns of their past lives. Timmy, for example, had an inexplicable fear of loud noises, a direct trauma from his death by artillery shell. The girl who spoke Aramaic demonstrated a deep and natural reverence for spiritual practices, as if she carried with her the devotion of a life dedicated to faith. At this point in the recording, it's worth pausing to reflect on the magnitude of these revelations. If you've been following these extraordinary discoveries about the mysteries of the soul and reincarnation, be sure to subscribe to continue receiving reports like this, which bring to light truths hidden for decades. There's much more to be revealed about the secrets Edgar Cayce uncovered, but which have been suppressed for nearly a century. During the session, Cayce also addressed more complex issues about karma and the purpose of multiple lives. He explained that each soul carries with it not only memories, but also spiritual debits and credits accumulated throughout its existences. Timmy, for example, had been a courageous soldier who died trying to save a comrade, an act that had generated a positive karmic credit. This credit allowed him to be born into a loving and understanding family capable of helping him process his traumatic memories. But Cayce warned that not all children with past life memories bring only trauma or positive experiences. Some carry negative patterns that need to be transformed. He mentioned cases of children who demonstrated inexplicable cruelty or irrational fears that could only be understood through knowledge of their actions in previous existences. These situations, he said, were opportunities for the soul to learn compassion and forgiveness, both for itself and for others. The psychic also revealed that the ability to remember past lives was directly related to the spiritual development of the soul. More evolved souls who had gone through many incarnations and learned important lessons often chose to be born with conscious memories to serve as teachers or guides for other souls. These children, Cayce said, often demonstrated wisdom and compassion far beyond their chronological age. A particularly fascinating aspect of Cayce's revelations was his description of how souls choose their families and circumstances of birth. He explained that on the spiritual plane, before reincarnation, souls gather in groups and make agreements on how they will help each other during the next life. Parents and children, he said, often have connections that span multiple existences, alternating roles and relationships to facilitate mutual spiritual growth. In Timmy's case, Cayce revealed that not only had his mother been Marie Dubois, but his current father had been the French captain who commanded Henry's unit. In the previous life, the captain had felt deeply guilty for failing to protect his soldiers, including Henry. Reincarnation as Timmy's father offered an opportunity for redemption, allowing him to finally care for and protect the soul he had failed to save in the trenches. These revelations about family connections across lives deeply touched everyone present. Cayce explained that many seemingly inexplicable family dynamics, instant love, persistent conflicts, or intense emotional connections were reflections of relationships that extend across multiple existences. Understanding these connections, he said, was essential to healing destructive family patterns and strengthening bonds of genuine love. During this session, Cayce also addressed a question that troubled many of those present. Why did some people remember past lives and others didn't? He explained that the ability to remember was related to several factors, including the intensity of the experiences lived, the level of spiritual development of the soul, and the specific need to process certain memories in the current life. People who died traumatically or with unresolved emotional issues often retained more vivid memories. But Cayce also revealed that everyone carries memories of past lives, even if they are not consciously accessible. These memories manifest as inexplicable talents, irrational fears, instant affinities with certain cultures or historical periods, and patterns of behavior that seem innate. A child prodigy on the piano, for example, could be accessing skills developed in a previous life as a musician. The psychic described specific techniques through which adults could access their own past life memories. He recommended deep meditation, especially in altered states of consciousness similar to his own trance. He also suggested that certain experiences, such as visiting historical sites, listening to ancient music, or practicing traditional arts, could trigger latent memories. He cautioned, however, that this process should be undertaken carefully and preferably under spiritual guidance, as not all memories would be pleasant or easy to process. As the session progressed, Cayce began to show signs of physical exhaustion. His breathing became more labored, and his voice, normally clear during trances, began to falter. But he persisted, as if he knew he was transmitting vital information that needed to be preserved. At this point, his revelations became even deeper and more disturbing. He began to describe not only individual past lives, but collective patterns that repeated themselves throughout history. Groups of souls, he said, reincarnated together in different eras and cultures, enacting the same basic dramas in varied contexts. Wars, for example, frequently involved the same souls taking on different roles. Enemies in one life became allies in another, victims became perpetrators, and so on, until all the lessons of compassion and forgiveness were learned. This revelation about collective patterns shed new light on human history. Cayce suggested that significant historical events, major wars, spiritual movements, periods of cultural renaissance, were orchestrated on the spiritual plane by groups of souls who chose to reincarnate together to facilitate evolutionary changes in human consciousness. World War I, in which Henry Dubois had died, was described as a collective karmic event designed to teach humanity about the futility of violence and the need for international cooperation. Cayce also revealed that Timmy was not just an isolated case, but part of a special generation of children who were being born with conscious memories of past lives. These children, he said, were part of a larger spiritual plan to elevate human consciousness. They brought with them not only individual memories, but also collective wisdom accumulated through multiple existences, destined to help humanity evolve spiritually. At this point in the recording, Cayce's voice became almost a whisper, but his words carried a prophetic urgency. He predicted that in the following decades, more and more children would be born with developed psychic abilities and memories of past lives. These children, he said, would be the spiritual leaders of the future, guiding humanity through a fundamental transformation in how we understand the nature of consciousness and reality. But Cayce also warned about the challenges these children would face. He predicted that many would be misunderstood by parents, teachers, and mental health professionals who would lack knowledge about psychic phenomena. Some would be unnecessarily medicated. Others would be labeled as problematic or mentally unstable. Therefore, he emphasized the importance of educating society about these possibilities so that future generations of psychic children could be adequately supported. The psychic also shared insights on how to identify a child with past life memories. Besides direct accounts of experiences they never lived, these children frequently demonstrated specific, unexplained fears or phobias, precocious talents in areas never studied, and an emotional maturity that seemed disproportionate to their age. They also displayed his own experiences would prepare him for this unique role, allowing him to offer genuine understanding and compassion to other souls going through similar processes. Timmy, Cayce predicted, would write books about his experiences that would help society accept and understand the phenomenon of reincarnation. In the final moments of the session, Cayce's voice grew weaker, yet his words carried a spiritual intensity that deeply moved everyone present. He spoke of the eternal nature of the soul, explaining that physical death is merely a transition like shedding old clothes for new ones. Consciousness, he said, is indestructible and continues to evolve through multiple experiences until it achieves complete union with the divine source. He also shared a vision of the ultimate purpose of reincarnation. Each life, he explained, is an opportunity for the soul to learn specific lessons about love, compassion, forgiveness, and service to others. Difficult experiences are not punishments, but opportunities for spiritual growth. Even suffering has a sacred purpose, for through it we develop empathy and understanding for the struggles of other souls. Cayce concluded the session with a message of hope and encouragement. He said that humanity was approaching a golden age of spiritual understanding, where the fear of death would be replaced by the certainty of the continuity of consciousness. Children like Timmy were the forerunners of this new era, bringing with them living proof that the soul is eternal and that true love transcends all barriers, including death. When Cayce finally emerged from his trance, he was visibly exhausted but also deeply moved by the experience. He told those present that he had never received such profound and comprehensive revelations about the nature of the soul and reincarnation. He also expressed his concern that society at the time was not ready to accept these truths, which is why he ordered the recording to be sealed. In the days following the session, Timmy began to show signs of improvement. His nightmares gradually lessened, and he began to talk less about his memories of Henry Dubois. His parents, armed with the understanding provided by Cayce, were able to help him process his experiences with love and acceptance. Following the seer's instructions, they performed a small ceremony where Timmy could symbolically say goodbye to his past life as a French soldier, thanking him for the lessons learned and consciously choosing to focus on his present life. Timmy's transformation was remarkable. As his traumatic memories faded, he became a calmer and more loving child. His parents reported that he displayed an unusual compassion and wisdom for his age, often comforting other children who were suffering and showing an intuitive understanding of human emotions. It was as if he had integrated the wisdom of his past lives without carrying the weight of painful memories. Years later, as Cayce had foreseen, Timmy grew up to become a therapist specializing in transpersonal psychology. He developed innovative techniques to help children with past life memories, and his work significantly contributed to the scientific acceptance of reincarnation. His books, written with a unique sensitivity based on his own experience, helped thousands of families understand and support children going through similar experiences. The sealed recording remained forgotten for decades until changes in the leadership of the Edgar Cayce Foundation led to a complete review of the historical archives. When the file was finally opened in 2024, its contents caused a revolution in the scientific understanding of consciousness and reincarnation. Researchers worldwide began systematically studying children with past life memories, validating many of Cayce's predictions. Today, nearly a century after that extraordinary session, we live in the era Cayce predicted. Millions of people around the world are spontaneously remembering their past lives, and reincarnation is being accepted not only as a spiritual belief, but as a scientific reality. Children born with conscious memories of previous existences are now understood and supported rather than being labeled as problematic. The revelation of Cayce's recordings also illuminated deeper aspects of human nature. Understanding that we carry experiences from multiple lives has transformed how we view relationships, talents, fears, and life purposes. Many people have found peace in understanding that their current struggles are part of a broader spiritual journey and that each experience contributes to the evolutionary growth of the soul. Cayce's predictions about collective patterns of reincarnation have also proven accurate. Modern studies have identified groups of souls that consistently reincarnate together, taking on different roles but maintaining deep emotional connections. This understanding has helped explain phenomena such as love at first sight, inexplicable animosities, and the feeling of knowing someone immediately upon first meeting. More significantly, the revelation that children with past life memories are part of a larger spiritual plan has given new meaning to humanity's role in cosmic evolution. These children, now recognized as bearers of ancestral wisdom, are helping to create a more compassionate and spiritually conscious society. The forbidden Edgar Cayce recording on Timmy and other children with past life memories remains one of the most important spiritual documents in modern history. It not only validated the reality of reincarnation, but also provided a detailed roadmap for understanding how the soul evolves through multiple experiences. The revelations contained in that December 1937 session continue to illuminate our understanding of the eternal nature of consciousness and the sacred purpose of the human journey. Today, when we look at children who speak of lives they never lived, we no longer see anomalies or problems to be solved. We see messengers of an eternal truth, that we are more than our physical bodies, that our consciousness transcends death, and that each life is a precious opportunity to grow in love, wisdom, and compassion. The story of Timmy and Henry Dubois reminds us that the soul is truly immortal, and that love between people can transcend not only death, but time itself.